right, I got everything dry. Now, what we're going to do is I want to give some value to the body as part of the details. So I'm going to take a little bit of the orange and put it on the light hand side. I need to add some water to my color here and probably make a little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to do this wet on dry. Just pretty basically right down this side, and that's just going to lighten this side up, which is the lighter side of the butterfly, hence the shadow on that side. Like I said, I'm doing this wet on dry, so I'm not adding in a whole bunch of water or anything at this point. If I get some on the left hand side, not a biggie, because the darker value will cover it up. I think I'm going to let this dry and then we'll do that one more time. I can see there's a value change going on here. I don't know if you can on camera. I hope you can. Okay, so we got that part done. Now, let's take a look at our detail. What I want to do is I want to put in veins, and this outside edge we'll do last after everything's nice and dry, and we'll darken that. I'm happy with the shadows. We could actually put another glaze on there and bring that out just a little bit further so it doesn't look quite so stilted, I guess is the best way. And the color that we're going to create here for the detail on the wings is going to be the darker teal, which consists of more ultramarine blue with the teal that we mixed before. So French ultramarine blue and hooker's green and more blue than we had before, than the hooker's green. So I'm going to take my mixing brush. We're going to need a little bit of this, so make sure we've got enough going. Not going to need any more of the teal. The teal is going to actually end up being our highlights. This is going to be our shadows. So when I mix a new color like this, always try to test it out. See, that is darker. Could actually be just a tad darker yet. So I'm adding more French ultramarine to my puddle of paint. And we'll see how that does it. It looks lighter, but it's not. There we go. Yep, that's better. Okay, I'm going to mix just a bit more of this all together. So I've got enough of it when I need it. Yeah, that looks really good. Pretty colors. Okay. Now my towel is getting pretty damp. So what I'm going to do is just swap out. I always have some hanging here drying. I'm going to just swap these out so I got a nice dry towel. I got one on my lap too, but I seem to use the one on the table more than my lap for some reason. That's okay. So there, now I've got a nice dry towel. That's nice and dry now, so I'm going to take some more of my orange. I'm going to keep it on the lighter side. Got a couple spots here it doesn't want to adhere to, so I'm just going to dab those on rather than sweep them on. We'll let that dry again. So let's go down to this portion of the right hand wing. Clean my brush real well. Making sure the ferrule is completely cleaned off. Filling my brush nice and full, bringing it to a point. I'm going to start right up in this area. Oh yeah, this is going to be really pretty. Now, like I said, the teal that we've already laid down, that's going to be our highlight. This is our shadow part. We're doing this wet on dry. Now I do want to soften the edges, and all I did was clean my brush, damp wiped it on my towel, and before this can dry, I'm just going to soften those edges away. I want that dark in there, but I don't want a dark straight line. Alright, and I'm going to turn this around so it's easier for me to get at, to do this side. You have to do that fairly quickly because you don't want that to dry into a harsh line. It's already drying. I can tell I've got my vent open pretty far. I'm in the basement, so I like heat down here in the winter. It's freezing outside right now, so I got my heat vent open pretty far. Not normally the case, but I can tell the difference how everything is drying. It's amazing. Okay, so there we go. Now that I've got some water in there, I'm just going to run that down just a little bit thicker. I want that to show up, not quite just as a line. I want it to be almost a stripe. There, that's what I wanted. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the same color. Boy, even that's starting to dry out already, and I just made it. It's pretty sad. I think what I'm going to do is this. And I'm just going to do some veining down in here. Just bring some of these up like that. Soften the edges real quickly. I'm beginning to wonder if I shouldn't wet this down first and then do it, because it's really drying quickly. And you can go right over the line too and soften it in. I do that a lot of times with, oh, let's say I'm doing a tulip and I'm putting a lot of streaks in it, and I don't want them to look real harsh. You can just, rather than glaze them on with everything wet on wet, you can put them down like this and then just go right over them with water. I'm going to just darken this up a little bit more so you can see it better. Alright, that looks good. And that'll soften in. I know why that's blowing so hard, is the furnace just kicked in. I'm like, what in the world is that doing that so hard for? Just making some more paint. Like I said, everything's drying rather quickly here. There we go. And our light teal is coming through as a shadow, so that's, or as a highlight. So that's working out pretty nice. I'm going to go right down like this. So all I'm doing is cleaning my brush out, making sure that there's moisture in there, but it's not dripping. And I'm running the tip of my brush right to the edge of that paint. Now this side I'm not going to be able to get to it both sides, so I'm just going to go right over it with my brush. And since that's moist there, it's going to go. Just reloading my brush. Just going to go over the entire line before it dries. There we go. And I loaded that one up pretty good, so that seems to be what's working the best on this as far as my air duct here. Now if we need to darken those as this dries, which it might lighten too much, not able to see it, we can always do that. But we're still maintaining our highlights. So there we go, we got the first one in. I'm going to take a photograph of this real quickly. I did photograph it just before we started doing this. I like to take a couple of them and then I know I got it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this side again. Going to be fairly similar. It's not going to be identical, but I think I am going to add in some clear water. Then I'm not in any big hurry to get back to it, and soften it in. And I'm going to create some more paint here too while I got the chance. There we go. Oh yeah, that's going to be much better. I can tell already it's not going to dry real harsh. Yeah, now this one, this side for sure, I will probably have to come back and deepen it, but that's okay. Rather that than to have it be real harsh, which you don't want. I'm going to try to keep that highlight right there. because I like that effect in that curve that I've got going on there. Soften that one in a little bit better. They're not identical, but they're fairly similar, which is okay. I think I'm going to just put a little bit more dark up here on both sides. I like that. And we're going to soften that in so it doesn't dry harsh. That one kind of spread out a little bit further than I wanted it to, so I'm just going to take my eradicator and get it moist. Get a clean piece of paper towel. Wipe off the eradicator in between. See how easily that loosens that paint up underneath? There we go, that's better. And what I could do on this side too, once it's dry, is just add in a little bit more teal, just to make it match the other side a little bit better. Again, I know it's not symmetrical, and I get that, but so I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to start doing some detail up in here. That's just the first set of details. We're going to have a few more in there yet too, once we get all of them done. And then we'll go from there. So I'll be right back with you. Good morning. Today we're going to continue on our butterfly, and what I did was practice basically to see what was going on here is I added water glaze to this shadow, and I added just a straight gray. It's neutral gray tint with a lot of water in it, and I like it a lot better. This looks too stilted to me as it dried. So I'm going to do the same thing down here, and you're going to get to see me do that. So I'm going to grab my water brush. And since this is a larger area on this side, I'm going to just do it in 2 steps so my water doesn't dry out. I think I figured out why my water was drying so quickly, or my paints were drying so quickly, so I had the heat vent right over my head wide open, so shut that down a little bit, and we'll see today if that helps. Got a feeling it will. Okay, so I got my glaze on there, and I'm just doing 1 glaze. You don't want that much water, making sure I have no paint on my ferrule. And what I'm going to do then is pull this so I can get at it a little bit easier. And I am going to go right up to the edge of the petal. Wing. I keep thinking it's a flower. Go right up to the edge of the wing. And cover up what's there so it all blends in together. And that'll help soften some of that dark too. And let's see, bring some more paint on my brush. I'm going to watch that for a moment before I go on any further. And I think I'm just going to soften this edge just as if I were doing wet on dry. I'm just giving it more water to blend out into, and it's just going to soften that edge and keep it from drying harsh. Even though it's not a flower, we still want it to be soft and delicate. That's what butterflies are. Okay, so now I'm going to add some more water on this edge. We'll start down here. I should say up here. That's actually the up part of the wing, top part of the wing. And again, I'm putting water on right up to the wing so that it all blends in together. Picking up more paint, wiping off my ferrule. Going right up to the edge of the wing. You can see already I'm going to need a little bit more water over here so this has a place to flow into. So I'm going to add it while I notice that. Just want to be careful not to pick up any paint as you would do that. This is softening that shadow in, giving it its third value basically. And it doesn't matter if this would be a flower or a book or whatever, something sitting down on something, you would do the shadows exactly the same way, whether it be an apple or orange or whatever, vase. You always want to have 3 values of shadow, and your shadow is always going to follow what it's sitting on. This happens to be a flat surface it's sitting on, so it's not bending differently or anything like that. And I'm just going in with the straight neutral tint now to straighten out this edge here. A couple spots that needs to be done. So if you need to do that on yours, go right ahead. But if you had an apple sitting in front of another apple behind it and the shadow was on the table and then it hit that apple behind it, then that shadow would actually bend around that second apple that it's hitting. So you got to remember that when you're doing shadows. It's important. Best thing you can do to learn about shadows, I mean, you could study all you want, read all the books in the world about shadows. Open yourself up a cardboard box. We all order from Amazon, so you could get something from Amazon and just leave the sides and the back and put your items in the center, and then set yourself up with an inexpensive light that's going to shine on that. Move your light around so you can see what's happening to that object when you do that. And then put something behind it that the shadow is hitting, and you can see how that shadow bends around that second item, or up and over, or whatever. But it's not just laying flat like it was when it was on the table. Okay, now since that's such a dark color, I'm going to dry that real quickly, and I'll be right back with you.